like Eric said, I'm going to talk a little bit about iPhone web development. Yep, the screen's going. iPhone web development and in particular iUI, which is a little JavaScript and CSS bundle that I put together for emulating the look and feel of native iPhone apps, like this one here. So before I get into iUI, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what it's like to develop for the iPhone. The iPhone browser is Safari, and it has some good and some bad. On the first day that I got my iPhone, I brought it home, and I expected, a lot of things would be available for me to play with, and sadly, a lot of them were not. So that's kind of the first thing you have to get over is, all the fun toys aren't quite here yet. Hopefully, they're coming. A big one is fixed positioning. This really boggles the mind a little bit, but the way the iPhone does scaling of web pages to attempt to fit a larger web page into a small screen, they made some compromises. So you can't do anything really that handles fixed positioning or dealing with the position of the scroll bar on the screen. It's a little frustrating. And multi-touch and mouse events and all that are completely disabled. So the only real interaction with the finger you can handle is just a touch. You can't do a touch down or a touch up. You can't do a drag or any of that stuff. Mouse move and all that stuff is disabled. Hopefully temporarily, but that's the state we're in today. And keyboard events also are disabled. And of course, you can't really get access to any of the fun toys like the accelerometer or the camera or the light sensor, any of that stuff yet. So get over that. And once you get over that, there's a lot of good stuff in the browser. It's a lot of fun, actually, and standard support in WebKit, which is the core of Safari browser, is really excellent. And if you're used to doing traditional web development, there's a lot of stuff that you haven't been able to use that may have been in some of the more modern browsers, but on the iPhone, it's all there and you can use it. WebKit border image, which is the standard CSS border image property from CSS3, is really nice. It allows you to do things like this button here, which is actually a single image stretched around and scales to the different size of text. That saves a lot of code if you ever tried to do rounded borders. And WebKit border radius, which is just without dealing with an image, you can get rounded corners. Text shadow, pretty obvious what that does. That's used a lot in Apple's standard kind of look and feel now. And text overflow allows you to do an ellipsis whenever the text is too wide for the screen. And finally, of course, Canvas. It's been around for a little while now, but you can go nuts with it on the iPhone. Coming soon, this isn't in the browser yet, but Safari 3.0 has support for SVG and XPath, and Apple is supposedly going to be moving to the Safari 3 in some update coming down the pipes. Right now, the Safari that's in there, they call it 2.5. Apparently, they forked somewhere in between Safari 2.0 and 3.0. So if you do your testing on the computer, I would recommend installing Safari 3.0 beta or getting a WebKit nightly build. That'll get you all the stuff that's not in Safari 2 but is on the iPhone, and some stuff that's in Safari but not on the iPhone yet. So let's move on to iUI. iUI is what is used to build this thing you're looking at here, which looks pretty much like a native iPhone app. It does a couple of things for you. It gives you the behavior of an iPhone app, most particularly the way that transitions happen in between pages, and it tries to map those conventions into standard HTML. So there's no need for you to write any JavaScript to use iUI. It basically is a single JavaScript and CSS file that you plop into your code, and it overrides the standard behavior of HTML and attempts to map it into, for instance, by overriding links and forms when you submit or click on them. It uses Ajax to load the content and smoothly insert it into the page and animate it, as opposed to just loading it and replacing the entire page, which isn't nearly as smooth as you would expect on an iPhone. So let me just show you quickly how this works. If you have an iPhone, this all looks pretty familiar. This is, you can browse around and things slide into place as you move them. You have these, title bar, and you have the back button, and when you click on things that take a while to load, it It gives you a little bit of a progress update. The back button, the actual browser back button, works. So as you navigate around in here, it uses the old trick of updating the hash portion of the URL. So as you use the back and forward buttons, it keeps you going as you would expect. In addition to this back button up here, which is custom. It has some things which look a lot like the iPhone itself. Like this is a sort of a preference panel with the input and checkbox control style to look like an iPhone. This is a modal dialog, and all this stuff again is just standard HTML. To the extent possible, you don't have to use any special CSS classes, and for some things you do. So that's that. So let me show you a little bit of the code that's used to build something like this. This is a very basic example. What you're looking at here is basically an iPhone app with 2 top-level pages. Everything that's inside the body, every top-level child of the body is a page. And you can link to these using traditional links with an anchor. Some things to notice here, the page that you want to be displayed first has selected equals true on it. If you don't specify that, it'll display the first one. The title attribute will be used and put up here. Again, this title bar is not part of the browser. This is just part of the web page itself. It's all HTML. And the link is, in this case, just your standard HTML href link to an ID. So when you do something like that and you click on it, it'll hide the previous page, show the previous one, and slide in between them. So that was the first version of iUI, the first night. I took that to iPhone Dev Camp, and everybody there wanted, of course, not to have their entire pages or their entire website in one page. So I added support for linking to external pages. The way that works is, if you link to an external page, it will load it. It'll override the normal linking behavior and load the page over AJAX. The only thing you have to do special is that in the page that you link to, you want to only have a fragment of the document, the portion that represents the thing you want inserted when the user clicks the link, not an entire HTML document with a body and a head and all that. So an example of that is when you go back here and I click on this, and I click on, you saw that earlier. When you click on something that's external, while it loads it, it shows you the little progress spinning bar. This is already loaded. Another thing that's handy is when you're using an iPhone, you're off the wireless network. You want to keep the pages as small as possible. And when you click on that, it will just load in another set and insert it in line. You can keep on doing that forever. And that's really easy to do. All you have to do is, here's the example of the source. You put target equals replace. Actually, that should be underscore replace. And the page that you link to will be loaded. And again, just like the other example I showed you, the thing that you link to should be just the stuff that you want inserted. So in this case, we want to add more LI elements to this list. So the page you link to just has LI. And so that's really something that I would recommend doing if you ever build an app that has a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. Form submission. I'm going to have to stop this before my computer explodes. Form submission is pretty easy to do as well. A standard form, as you can see here, just nothing special about it. But when you submit the form, it'll again submit it over AJAX. And on the server side, it's just like any other form post. And when the form is submitted, I'll show you an example of that. When the form is submitted, it slides the results into place. And last thing I'm going to go over here is modal dialogues. Also very easy to do. You just have to put class equals dialog on the page that you're linking to, which you want to be modal. And when it comes up, So I'll show you here. When it comes up, it'll cover the entire screen, darken it, and it won't transition in horizontally because it's not really replacing the browsing history. It's just going to pop it over. And when you submit the form, it'll submit into place, or if you cancel, it'll just go back to the previous page. So that's it. That's what iUI does today. This is only a couple weeks old, so there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be done. If you're getting involved in iPhone web development, the place to be is this Google group here, which I've linked to. Everyone who's doing iPhone apps is on there asking questions all day, and if you're using iUI, that's kind of the support group. So there's a lot of things that people are doing, that ideas coming in that we're going to build into the library. The main goal is to keep the library as small as possible, for obvious reasons. So, you know, incorporating a JavaScript library like YUI or any of the others is something we've tried to avoid for now. At the same time, obviously, the more features you add to iUI, the larger it gets. So, keeping it small is a priority over time. And yeah, that's it. iPhone development is still pretty young, so this is a short presentation. Esther, right? Estelle. Asked about supporting landscape versus portrait mode when you rotate the iPhone. I actually forgot to cover that because in the early days it was kind of a big deal. It's turned out to be not that big of a deal. The JavaScript in iUI has to actually poll for changes to the size of the screen in order to detect that you've rotated the phone. The onResize event doesn't work yet. So it kind of works unpredictably. That would be the ideal way to detect changes in rotation. So it detects that, and it sets an attribute on the body, orient. If it's equal to landscape, then you know the phone is in this mode here. If it's portrait, then it's the other way, and you can style your pages based on the value of that attribute. I actually haven't found myself using it as much as I thought I would, but for a lot of cases, because the screen is not very tall when you're in this mode, you might want to shrink the size of your fonts or the size of your images just to make more of the actual content in the middle there fit in. One thing I'd also like to mention is this look and feel you're seeing here is ripped directly from Apple's actual images taken from the iPhone that some people managed to get off of it somehow. I haven't heard from Apple about that yet, but you know, this is the default look. So I wouldn't recommend. I mean, if you're developing iPhone apps, I'd hopefully not encourage too many people to make their apps look like this, because it looked pretty cool on June 29th when I first got my iPhone, but it already looks like it's 10 years old. It's been, what, 3 weeks? I'm already kind of bored by it. So, like, I like it when I see iUI apps where people actually style override these default styles and make it their own. But you will get this at least for free. It's a nice way to jump in, get started, and have something that looks nice right away. Yeah, pretty much stopped in like every possible way you could imagine. Position fixed doesn't work. Background attachment fixed doesn't work. You can't do anything in JavaScript like people used to do in Internet Explorer before they supported all that stuff to detect changes to scrolling, because they don't update the value of any of the DOM properties that represent where the scrolling is happening. So pretty much no answer to that right now. I did have a brief conversation with some people at Apple, and they're acutely aware of this, and I think we can expect a solution soon. Compressed, the CSS and JavaScript are about 7 or 8K combined. The images, the default images that come with it add up to another 30K or something like that, but they come in not all at once. And of course, if you have gzipping turned on, it's going to be, less than 2K overall. Thanks.